What is up, and welcome to another edition of the Bruin Bible. Spring practice is about 2 weeks deep, and I've got my two favorite people covering the Bruins in spring practice. They're giving me all the alerts I need. First and foremost, we got our boy Iron Mike Regalado from the Bruin Report for 247Sports. Mike, it looks like you're at a coffee shop of some sorts. What's going on?
What's up, y'all? Thanks for having me back again. Yeah, it's needed some Wi-Fi, and I was like, hey, I know a quiet coffee shop. It's not that quiet, but if it doesn't bug you, that's cool.
We'll take it, man. We're just happy to have you on. And then we got all Bruin for SI, Mr. Sam Connon, one of my favorite reporters. He does a lot of great stuff there. Make sure you like and follow these guys after this episode. Sam, what's going on, brother?
Oh, not too much, just working through spring practice, keeping an eye on UCLA baseball and softball too, having some pretty fun seasons going on right now.
Yeah, UCLA had a walk-off home run, I believe, the other night to win against, was it Loyola Marymount? Who were they playing?
Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah, they had a late homer to tie and then another to walk off and win. They've had like 4 one-run wins in a row. It's a weird, fun season for a young team.
UCLA, one of the top teams in the Pac-12, so keep an eye on them baseball-wise moving forward. But we're going to be talking about spring practice. And there's a lot of new names out there, a lot of people stepping up to the spots. I want to get your guys' opinions on the matter. I've been reading your articles. One name really stood out to me when I read the tweet of Yogi Roth, the Pac-12 reporter. And Sam, I'll start with you. Jake Bobo, transfer from Duke. He's making a name for himself, and it looks like Dorian Thompson-Robinson may have found his replacement to Kyle Phillips as his security blanket. Bobo, a third-team All-ACC selection last year, 70-plus catches, really lit it up at Duke, and now he's kind of making a name for himself in Westwood. What have you seen from Bobo so far in spring practice?
Yeah, so for Jake Bobo, what I've kind of seen from him so far, I think the first practice he was playing mostly with the twos, playing in the spot where Matt Sykes would line up on the outside. And then by practice 2 or 3, he pretty much took over with the ones. And Matt Sykes still gets some time there as well. He's been with the program for 3 years now. So Chip Kelly likes the veterans, the experienced guys. But Jake Bobo filling that outside role, I feel like for the first time in a couple of years, maybe since like Theo Howard in 2018, 2019, when that was that he had a big year, is the first time the Bruins really have a reliable, maybe if not a deep threat, just an outside the numbers threat, because Kyle Phillips is very much a slot guy who can go outside, but Jake Bobo, he can go downfield. He can run those deep routes on the sideline, and it looks nice. And DTR has been able to find him, and he's been able to create separation too. It's not just going for jump balls, which he has done, but it's also beating some of the corners one-on-one. So that's good to see, because that's a new fold to this offense that they might need without having a slot blanket like Kyle Phillips in there.
What is up, LAFB fans? This is Will Decker, host of the Bruin Bible, and Draft is in session with Jamal Madney. We got a special new sponsor coming to you live for LAFB, and that is Bet Online. They're going to be taking care of all my needs for NBA playoffs coming up and the MLB season starting up this Thursday. Sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit for Bet Online at betonline.ag. Promo code LAFB to get started. Bet Online remains your number one spot for all updated odds and info, along with player props and new contests throughout the year. It's the best source for all your sporting wagering needs, including live betting and everyone's favorite Vegas casino and poker games. Who doesn't love those? I'm a roulette guy myself. It's super easy to get started. So join today. Learn why everyone is using Bet Online. It is the fastest and easiest way to wager on sports. Bet Online, where the game starts. Yeah, and I read your report. He connected with DTR, or DTR connected with him for like a 40-yard gain over the middle. So making plays already on campus, that's what we like to see. Mike, give me your interpretations of Jake Bobo. I like what I'm hearing from Sam. You guys have been able to see him in person. I'd love to hear your take.
The thing that I noticed was that he is a big dude. I think he's the biggest receiver, tallest receiver, and he uses his body really well. If fans were worried about production that wasn't going to be there because of Kyle Phillips moving on to the NFL, I think Bobo as well as, by committee. I don't think he's going to be like the standout, at least not yet. But he's looking really good, very athletic. And that's the thing. You bring in a transfer, he's already going to know what to do. His body's already going to be in shape. He's already going to be used to the daily practice regimen. So, yeah, he just kind of hit the ground running. And, like Sam said, just finding, good connection with DTR early on. But as far as other receivers, like Sam said, Matt Sykes is looking pretty good. Logan Loya is looking all right. And I noticed there's a lot of rotation right now, especially, it's spring. So I keep telling people, whenever they ask questions, they go, oh, is that going to affect us? Like, yes, but it's still just spring. And that's especially important when we get to the offensive line.
Yeah, and I got to hear your guys' takes on the O-line. Raekwon O'Neal is not there. So it's been, not the advertised line that we expect come fall with a redshirt senior transfer that has made 2 Big Ten all honorable mention squads. But Garrett DeGiorgio on the offensive line. And Sam, who is the right tackle that's filling in right now?
It's Josh Carlin.
Josh Carlin. I've heard the reports. It's been a little chaotic to start. Give me your take on the offensive line and, how you feel them like shaking out, because from what I've heard, and, we root for these kids. We're UCLA. It's not a professional sport. These are college kids, but it does look to be a weak link so far in the early stages of practice. Is that correct? I'll go with you, Sam.
All right. Yeah, it definitely looks that way right now. Again, it's hard to judge because it's a bunch of new faces on the defensive line and on the edge going against guys on the offensive line. So you're thinking, well, are the Murphy twins really good, or is it the offensive line? Are those tackles really weak? And right now it's kind of hard to tell because we don't know what the Murphy twins can do at a Pac-12 level. So it's just comparing what they did at North Texas to what UCLA's other pass rushers did in the past few seasons against Sean Ryan and Alec Anderson in practice. And then it's all just kind of a jumbled mess in terms of making comparisons. Garrett DeGiorgio, it feels like he'll move over to right tackle when Raekwon O'Neal does get on campus over the summer. And then O'Neal will be left. Josh Carlin has definitely looked the weakest of the starting offensive linemen, but he did start to look better the past 2 practices when they've been in pads. So that's good to see. It's been a real leap for him just in the role he has to take because, Sean Ryan and Alec Anderson played pretty much every snap the past 3 years on the tackles. I know DeGiorgio got 1 or 2 games in there, but really no one else on this team has any experience at tackle. So it's going to be a rude awakening, and he's been getting worked by the edge rushers in practice so far, but nothing that's too much to overcome.
And replacing guys like Anderson and Ryan is a tough task. Like you said, they played almost every snap. Very solid linemen. Sean Ryan and Anderson, for the likelihood, are going to be, playing the NFL on Sundays. We're really excited to see where those guys go. We'll get to the Murphy twins in a second, but I do want to hear your take, Iron Mike, on the O-line performance. Would you have to agree with that Carlin has, been the weak point so far in the O-line?
Yeah, especially, on both edges. You lose a guy like Anderson and Ryan, that's just going to set you back a little bit. But a lot of these guys have been with Chip Kelly for quite a while. Before I actually get into that really quickly, we also have to take into consideration the fact that Justin Fry is gone. That is true. That I think is just as big as the 2 tackles, moving on. So you have a coach that is starting from scratch, sort of starting from scratch. He's bringing in his own, methods and whatnot and style, but you still have to work with this, whole new group. But back to my previous point, there are a lot of guys who have been there for quite a while, yet it's a little weird that they only have 11 active scholarship players right now. That's pretty thin. But yeah, you talked about how they bring in O'Neal, then you're going to get Sam Yoon. We just found out that Patrick Selna and I'm blanking on the other one. Sam, if you know it,
Thomas Cole, was it?
Thank you, Thomas Cole. So,
yeah.
And then they had a walk-on. I'm blanking on his name. I think it's Hadi. Utisapa. I'll get that prop. That was a horrible botching of his name, but he got hurt in practice the other day. So they were down one. But yeah, still take it with a grain of salt. But only 11 guys in spring. That's you got to fill that up quick. So that's a huge concern.
Lucky for us.
And just going on what Mike was saying, I remember last spring, Chip and everyone was talking about how great it was to have 3 full offensive lines, sometimes 4. You got 18, 19 offensive linemen out there. Yeah. And I mean, you had just quick names. You got Luke Young and Lucas Gramlich and Baraka Beckett aren't with the program anymore. It doesn't seem like from what we see in spring. You had Paul Gratton, Sean Ryan, Alec Anderson all leave. And then you have maybe like 4 guys who were injured. So the numbers game is really tough. So endurance is a factor too in the early days of spring ball, especially for the guys who are in new positions, not experienced, and they might just be gassed.
Might be gassed is right, dude. 11 guys. That is insanity when it comes to the O-line. Luckily, some reinforcements are coming our way in Westwood. I'm really excited for that. Let's talk about the Murphy twins. Like, these guys clearly look like they can play from everything I've read. And let's be honest, the best thing about getting the Murphy twins is you get 2 pretty much identical pass rushers that provide a high level of ability with, off the edge. And you get 2 of them. I was reading your report on, the starting defensive ends. Both Murphy twins are 1 and 2 in those reports. Like, these are guys that are going to play. They're going to make an instant impact. I think they both combined for close to, 16 sacks last year, 20 tackles for a loss. Mike, what have you seen from the Murphy twins to get UCLA fans excited?
So one of the things I like to focus on when looking at the schemes is, what the depth is, what the potential starters, the backups, yada, yada. I noticed that UCLA was putting they were cycling in a lot of players on the defensive line. But there was this one, it was like a 3rd and short situation where UCLA's defense wanted to bring pressure, and 3 guys from the line got substituted. Carl Jones, which was on the left side. I think it was on the field side while the Murphy twins were on the boundary side. Can't remember exactly right now, but you have like both Murphys next to each other with Carl Jones, who's known to be aggressive, and they were just wreaking havoc every time that line went in. And then the coaches started to use that as like the 1st and 2nd down formation for the defensive line, and they were just eating the line up. Same. We just talked about. Is it DeGiorgio and Carlin not being as good, or these guys being, really good? Either way, that's pretty promising, considering that the scheme is not that much different, but it looks like the striker position is gone. What the position Quantrez Knight held last season. It's going to be more of a true nickel position, as it seems. But again, this is spring. We're not sure what exactly is going to happen. But I do like the depth and the aggressiveness of the defensive line.
And I've heard, under McGovern, we've kind of shifted to more of a 4-3 as opposed to the 4-2-5. Sam, I want to hear your takes on the Murphy twins because – these guys, I mean, they came in with high expectations. They're delivering early from what it sounds like.
Yeah, they look the part. Like, if we're on the sideline and they're coming over during the special teams drills early on, we get an up close look. Like, they're physical guys. They have the length, they have the strength, the body, the muscle, all that to be high level players in Pac-12 play, which they're going to need, because Mitchell Agude is gone, Miles Jackson's gone. You lose those 2 pass rushers there, and you have Bo Calvert and Carl Jones come back on the other side. But you really needed to bring in guys in one way or another that could create pressure, because I think it was DeAndre Gill was the recruit who wasn't able to sign. Something happened there towards the National Signing Day and everything, so they lost another guy there who could have been in the outside linebacker, defensive end role. So to go just kind of 2 for 1 and get both of them in a package deal is huge, because you can replace that production that Agude could have given you. And they're looking the part so far. And like Mike was saying, I think the most interesting thing about them is how much they're moving all over the field. Sometimes they'll swap out and one will be in one defensive end, and then they'll just go from 1s to 2s and the other will take the other spot. Sometimes they'll be lining up on opposite ends on the field at the same time. Sometimes they'll be on the field at the same time. One will be kind of in they'll be right next to each other, like Mike was talking about. One's a defensive tackle in a third down situation, others on the end on the same side. So I think the defensive coaching staff, whether it's Malloy or McGovern, are definitely experimenting with them, and it's good to see that they're dynamic and athletic enough to fill all those roles.
I love it, man. This is getting me excited about the Murphy twins come the fall. I want to talk about the secondary because this has been consistently a problem with UCLA in the Chip Kelly era. But I think there's, reason to be excited, coming into this year. I've heard about Azizi Hearn making some plays. I'm interested to hear your guys' takes on that. Devin Kirkwood is, presumed maybe the number one outside corner this year from what it sounds like. And you get another transfer in like Jalen Davies, a highly recruited prospect, went to Oregon, transferred down to UCLA. Is there reason to think that the secondary has a chance to be significantly better than last year? I will start with you on this one, Mike.
I'm hoping so. I got to be honest. It looks similar. And I'm trying to, a lot of people call me, Mr. Silver Lining guy. It looks a little bit better, a little bit stable, but I think they need to really solidify what the depth is going to be, as well as what kind of scheme they're going to be running. But yeah, as you said, Will, they're running out of a 4-3 and occasionally throwing in a nickel defense, a 4-2-5. I think bringing that striker position back to his natural spot on the field will probably help. But I think with that, a huge factor is going to be how the linebackers help them out, because a lot of UCLA's defensive issues last season were in the middle of the field. Teams would, they wouldn't have to go deep. They would just, throw the ball like across the middle, 10, 15 yards, and boom, it's like a first down again for, Fresno State or, Oregon, whoever marched down on them at different times. But I do see positives, a little bit more positives in the linebackers, which in turn gives me more hope for the secondary.
And I know you mentioned a guy named Damian Sellers when we were talking off the air. I do want to hear your take on him. Sam, tell me about the secondary. I saw Azizi, picked off a pass yesterday when you were at practice. I've heard him make some plays. If you were to grade it from an A to an F right now going in, where would you grade the secondary and what you've seen on the potential?
I'd say somewhere around like a B minus, which
that's good.
May sound low, but it's better than it has been in the past. There have been days, especially the first few days, where they were really just getting carved up. But you have to attribute most of that to the fact that, well, Dorian Thompson-Robinson's in his 5th year. He's one of the most dynamic and experienced quarterbacks in the West, if not the entire country. So he's going to make these guys not look as good as they would against other quarterbacks. So that's one thing. Azizi Hearn, he looks solid, veteran, got the right amount of physicality and athleticism, but nothing amazing in either category. He seems almost like a replacement for Obi Ebo in that realm, or a guy who's just a solid all-around corner, doesn't have blazing speed, not a crazy playmaker or hard hitter. He can just kind of do everything pretty well with good size. And it seems like they're mostly lining Hearn up in the slot when they bring in that 5th defensive back, which is interesting because, like Mike was talking about earlier, changing things up, not having the striker position anymore, having that slot cornerback be a true slot cornerback instead of Quantrez Knight, who was blitzing a lot and was covering running backs a lot. And that was part of the whole idea of the defense the past 2 years, was creating that pressure with the extra blitzer and everything. Now they're going to try to create pressure with the 4 guys on the line and let the slot corner and the nickel just do their work. So that will probably help a little bit. Kirkwood's looked good. John Humphreys pretty much looks like he's the number 2 corner, at least when Hearn's in the slot. So that's interesting. He's a guy who doesn't have a ton of on-field experience, but he's been around the program a few years now. He's someone who you really want to step up, because they don't have a ton of options there. They're pretty much like 6, 7. They have like 7, 8 cornerbacks. Really not too many. So if John Humphrey is going to be in that 2 spot with not too many guys behind him, he's really going to have to impress this spring and then in the fall too.
Yeah, man. And, not a lot there, but just hearing you say B, I think that's just a stress reliever because B is better than what we've had, in recent
It's better
years.
than C minus.
Oh, man, we'll take that all day, given what we had last year. So B, we will take that. Let's move to the linebackers. Mike was alluding to it. The linebackers looked impressive. Damian Seller's a big name. And then the other guy, the transfer, Darius Muwasu. This guy was an all-whack performer for Hawaii, doing big things there. 100-plus tackles, last year. Made a lot of plays on the defensive side of the football, forcing turnovers, big-time plays. I think he had like 7 sacks, too, from a blitzing perspective. How has Muwasu and Sellers looked? Because what Mike was alluding to is it's looking pretty damn impressive. Sam, I'm going with you.
Yeah, I think with Muasau, it's really interesting because he seems to be swapping in and out with Caleb Johnson. And Caleb Johnson was a good veteran last year, but he, production-wise, and especially in terms of sacks and tackles for loss, took a big step back from 2020. So it'll be good to give him some competition, and if not competition, then have him split 50-50, or maybe have him play more than Caleb Johnson, whatever it ends up being. That definitely seems to be a good balance. 2 really solid guys in the middle playing that true inside linebacker role there. Also, he really looks like a old-fashioned linebacker, shorter, strong, bulky, physical, like big neck pad guy.
Oh,
just
yeah.
a real bowling ball who can get into the backfield, whether it's against running backs, quarterbacks. Not going to be the best in coverage, same way in the same way as Caleb Johnson. But then you have K. Medrano and you have Damian Sellers, 2 guys who look to be really good in coverage and almost kind of playing a nickel role depending on the formation. And you'll have John Vaughns come back in the fall once he's done playing with UCLA baseball. He's a center fielder. He's rangy. He's gonna have that coverage skill. So it's nice to have those key guys in the middle there. And then surround them with guys who can cover, like a Medrano or Alekaho when he comes back from injury, and all those guys like that.
Nice. I like what I'm hearing from the linebacker room. And guy that I'm incredibly high on is a guy, Caleb Johnson. This guy, 2020, you just look at the stats coming into last year. I thought he was going to really break out and be an all Pac-12 performer. He had 5.5 sacks in 7 games. Did not come to fruition last year, but then again, Mitchell Gude kind of took that spot from him. Him coming back for an extra year, I think that's really going to benefit him. Mike, tell me your confidence level with the linebacker room from an A to an F when you get Sellers, Johnson, and Muwasu potentially being the 3 guys that are going to see the field the most.
They look more active, and I don't know if that's scheme or development, but yeah, no, some of the guys look, bigger. We're still waiting on Alekaho, who he's been injured. He's been in a scooter riding around the sidelines, so we got to wait on him. But yeah, Caleb Johnson, he's done all right. He hasn't really jumped out. Mosau, he's, like Sam said, he looks like a linebacker. And again, and like I said earlier, one of the benefits from having, transfers is that these guys already know what to do in the college game. It may be Hawaii, but hey, they've gone up against tough opponents in the Mountain West.
Still Division I school,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And he just looks like he needs some reps, but I think he'll be ready. He looks really good.
Man, I love what I'm hearing from this. Another positive sign with the defense that has been plaguing us throughout these years. Tight ends. This is like the last major position group I have. I think we feel confident with Dorian Thompson, Robinson, and Charbonnet. No need to discuss those dudes. Azike and Habermill, the 2 guys fighting for the tight end spot. And we had a great tweet come out about Caleb Wilson, the tight end, saying, hey, I visited practice. I think the tight end room is going to be just fine. I'm excited to see where that's going. And Wilson was the guy who kind of started this lineage, under Chip Kelly, where the last 3 tight ends, when Dulcich gets drafted, have been draft-eligible players and gone in the draft. So it's exciting to hear him kind of give his stamp of approval on these guys. If you had to pick one going into the season, and I will start with you on this one, Mike, is it Michael Azike or is it Hudson Habermill?
It's weird. It's so here it is again. It's just spring because I still want to see what Michael Martinez can do. He's obviously going to be more of a blocking tight end, but he's been injured. I think he's going to be a really big piece. But I think it's going to be Ezekiel for the receiving aspect of the tight end position, and Habermill as a blocking, more of a blocking tight end, because he's looked really good going up and locking up some of those defenders, especially when they put some 2 tight end sets up there. He just looks natural in just getting up to the line and locking up one area for Dorian or the running backs or whoever to operate in the backfield. So I honestly think we're going to see a lot of them, if not both of them, on the field at the same time when they do those two tight end sets.
I love it, man. Sam, I am. Do you got an opinion on the matter in Ezekiel or Habermill?
I really think because we saw what Ezekiel could do at tight end. I think last year was his first year at tight end, and Dulcich was in front of him. But I mean, Martinez went down pretty early in the season, so he had some chances. He had a lot of snaps in there, and just didn't do too much. It's been kind of you saw him the moment he stepped on campus as a receiver and said, "Oh, that's a tight end." And now that he's moved to tight end, is he a great pass catching tight end? He should be better than what he's shown. And is he a great blocking tight end? Well, he's definitely a great blocking receiver. So he's just kind of in that weird in between position where I think Habermill may be the guy to break out, because you look at, I mean, Asiasi was kind of a low key transfer. Like when he transferred in from Michigan, he was notable, but not like he wasn't making headlines or anything. Caleb Wilson, he transferred from USC. He was a holdover from Moore to Chip Kelly. Again, a guy who wasn't supposed to be a game breaker, and then he had like 960 yards in 2018. Wow. And then obviously Greg Dulcich, he was a walk-on receiver, put on some weight, changed his play style, hung around a while, and became an all Pac-12 player. Probably going to be a second, third round pick in the NFL draft. So Hudson Habermill, I think, came in as a preferred walk-on receiver, I want to say, a few years ago. And yeah, he could be the next in that line of like weird, quirky, good story UCLA tight end kind of guy, where he's long, he's physical, he can. Right now, it seems like Ezekiel in practice is playing the Dulcich role, and Habermill is playing the Martinez role while Martinez is hurt. But when Martinez comes back and fills in that like pseudo 6th offensive line, 12 personnel role that he filled last year in the early part of the season, could Habermill move over and be that receiving tight end, the guy who runs up the seam like Dulcich and Asiasi did? Maybe. It's not the most likely, but I think there is a pretty decent shot that he gets reps, he gets catches, and he impresses in real game situations next fall.
Man, well, whatever UCLA does in the tight end room, luck has been on their side. They've done a phenomenal job developing those guys. I just got one last question for each of you. Thank you guys so much for coming on, by the way. Always fun to talk to you, Sam. I am. Always fun to talk to you, Iron Mike. Sam, I'll start with you on this one. Who has been the most impressive player in your mind?
I'll go with a surprise guy. I'll go with DJ Justice.
Oh, okay.
Who I think last year was his true freshman year, and I want to say he didn't see the field at all. But he has had some really good catches, some one-handed catches. He's run some really tight routes. In that receiver spot with Kyle Phillips gone, with Chase Cole gone, they're going to have to replace a lot of production. It's probably not just going to come from one guy. It might be Cam Brown taking some more reps and having some more catches than he had last year. It's going to be Jake Bobo stepping in and playing well. But I think DJ Justice is a guy who can really maybe get some starts next year, because he's quick. He's been playing in the slot and on the outside in that Cam Brown side. So between Kaz Allen, Cam Brown, Logan Loya, Josiah Norwood, DJ Justice, all those like kind of tweener guys who are kind of in the slot can sometimes play outside. It's going to be a total mishmash for all of them. And I think DJ Justice is a guy who can really do well in that little mini position battle.
I love it. It's such a loaded group. DJ Justice was not a guy I would have anticipated. This is why I love talking to you guys about these spring practice reports. Iron Mike, you got to give me the one guy that you're stoked on that you've seen so far in spring ball.
I'm going to say Deshaun Morrell. He didn't see any time last year. He's a recruit that comes from Alabama. He actually never visited UCLA before he committed. And he's looked good in practice, but he hasn't seen the field. But with Charbonnet coming back, that was huge. Obviously, he's going to be RB1, but who was going to be 2 and 3? Well, it seemed like it was going to be Keegan Jones, but he's looked okay. It doesn't seem like he's made a step forward. Maybe not yet. Maybe we'll see that in fall. But I really like the way that Deshaun Morrell looks. He's solid. He's much bigger, thicker, not fat, but he's just bulk. Tons of muscle, and he just looks the part. And I think it kind of looks like he's about to break out. It seems like he knows what to do. He just needs to get used to it. He needs to get used to the formations, the calls, what Dorian's doing, what the offensive line is doing. But I have a feeling that he might play a lot of minutes this season.
Yeah, I love it. And, we've had kind of a two-back system for the past couple of years, Bryn Brown being a huge part of that. So you're going to have to take the load off Charbonnet at some point. Morrell could be that guy. Fellas, this was an honor. I had such an awesome experience. Thank you guys for coming on. We'll have to do it again later in the off season.